Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Reframe series. And today we are going to be introducing you to Prithvi, and we will have her introduce herself.
Hello everyone. I am Prithvi. I'm 27-year-old, and I have been living in US since past 5.5 years. I did my undergrad in planning and public policy in India, and then came here to do my master's, and I did a master's in planning at USC. And I born and brought up in India. I am 100% Indian, and that's where I decided to sort of do this unconventional thing of picking urban planning as my undergrad study, and it was an interesting choice. Nobody had heard about it. I hadn't heard about it, so I decided to pick that up because it's through like a process of elimination where I was like, I know I don't want to do medicine. I know I don't want to do engineering. What else is there? So through this exploration and elimination process, I reached to urban planning. Um, and I think what was the most fascinating part for me was how the way planning looks at communities and settlements and people, and the issues and problems related to those settlements, and how it is an interdisciplinary effort to solve those challenges. Um, and just to understand how cities function, like, okay, here is a bus, but how is it running? Why how is it funding itself? And how do they decide which one to run, where to run, and what are the constraints that they are facing? It's one of the most interesting things for me. So currently, I'm working for a metropolitan organization, planning organization here in US, which has been great so far, so good.
Yeah, it's just so fascinating to hear you talk because I think about how urban planning really allows you to see that a lot of the decisions that get made about cities and communities are they're actually very political, and
Yeah.
they it's not just that someone put a random hospital in a certain location. It's that it was a decision made in conjunction with a lot of different people,
Yeah.
um, and and those decisions are inherently like they're political because they're made by people in charge of of certain things. And so it's so cool that you are now able to be part of that process.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's interesting to see these dynamics into play because there are different people who are trying to make that decision, who are part of the discussion, and finally, it's the final authority sort of lies in 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 the way through politics. It is what it is. But even before you reach that decision, when you have to consult like somebody who's an expert in geography and who's like an engineer, and those, like, a planner cannot make that decision alone, right? And you have to use these disciplines to sort of, like, if you need a landfill site, you have to understand the geography. You need to understand, like, if an industrial site is situated here, why is it? And if you have to zone some area as industrial, like, so those are, like, it's super interesting. And yeah, and to do it sort of as part of an academic exercise and then going out and doing it in the actual world, and you see that contrast that, oh, okay, we said that you can include, like, I don't know, affordable housing or extend the school area or whatever, like add more open spaces. It was easier to do when you had like a CAD file and you're just like, oh, this makes more sense. And then you go out there, um, you look at communities and what they actually want. And then there are different sort of units that are into play who have their own interests, and like, yeah, it's kind of interesting to see how everything plays out, once it leaves this drawing board. Um, Definitely.
Yeah. So I'm super interested to know kind of um what made you decide I want to come to the United States and do this degree here.
Yeah.
Um and especially after getting this urban planning degree like in your undergrad in India, um, and even kind of what influenced you in just going in this direction in general.
Um, yeah, I think uh, when for as I mean, most Indian systems are like you do your 12th and you directly choose what you want to do um, for your undergrad degree, and you don't have that sort of flexibility that people have here, where you can explore a few subjects and then decide what your major or minor is going to be. We don't have that sort of flexibility, so you jump right in, which is great in terms that you know what you want to do and you try to like become an expert in that thing. But at the same time, what if you make a mistake? What if like you don't know, you like everybody is like they're too young to make that decisions, or it's not that easy of a decision for everybody. um so I think I was fortunate enough to uh, pick something like urban planning because there were aspects of it that fascinated me. The sort of, it helped me understand the questions that would come to my mind when I'm traveling in a bus, when I'm looking at people just walking or uh, biking, going from their work to like home and coming back. And it would just help me understand people much better, and not like as one person but just as a community. Like in India, we would do studies as part of undergrad. We would just like go to villages, and there is so much history to it. Like how are these specific community or sub communities placed in that settlement, in which direction, you know like that's the kind of questions that would never come to my mind. And I was like thinking about those, and trying to understand what that is, and trying to see the challenges related to those. So I think that's again pushed me further into this field. I was very lucky to do my undergraduate degree at SEPT University in Ahmedabad in India. It's one of the best schools for planning in India. And there I got to be an intern at one of the urban equity related centers of research, and where we did just like went around to slums um, as interns to like interview them, understand the eviction process, if there were like evictions over the time, why were there evictions? Most of them were because of some sort of project, and just to see the impact and how, like, if once we are sitting in a car or in a bus, we just pass through these roads, but like there were those roads were not there, they are widened. So what happened to the people who are right next to it? So just trying to like I think that helped me uh, move further towards um this field. And then like I remember one of these summers, and Ahmedabad has bad summers, like they have heat wave warnings all the time, and it's like that. And one of the summers, four of us, my friends and I, we decided to go around the city and map all the street vendors that we can in like four wards, which is like an administrative unit within the city. And we mapped like about over 2,000 vendors or more than that. Now I don't even remember. It's been long. Uh, and then we tried to understand how they are placed. We went and talked to like 200 of those. Like we conducted interviews, and we did this this just because we were bored. We just had a summer off, and we wanted to do something. And we then tried to understand, there was a new policy that was coming up on street vendors. We tried to understand that in the context of what is actually happening on the ground. And it's just when you go to a good school, you're surrounded by great people, who you come there, who are smart, who want to do something, just to be having that privilege to be around people like that, to be taught by one of the best in the field. And the culture of SEPT University is really open, so it's a very different way of and style of teaching. I think I just I got extremely fortunate when I made that choice to pursue urban planning and then pursuing it at SEPT University. So that just like helped me again, pushed me towards this field further. And when it came to doing masters, I was looking at programs that would basically help me get, I mean, obviously, again, the same things. If I'm in a good school, I'll be surrounded by great people, you know, and then I'll be taught by great people, which is why I think I picked USC. There were a couple more schools I applied to. USC seemed like the best fit based on what I wanted to do or understand, which was urban inequities and things like those. I know we have a professor at USC. She did a lot of street vending related work, and so it was like everything just sort of came together for me, and I made that decision. And again, I think US was not like the first choice. I think which is for a lot of people. I applied to other places too. Yeah, and but USC seems the sort of front running contender, and again it worked out.
Yeah. What So this is kind of like related to kind of our the underlying theme that we've been seeing for a lot of the Reframe series, which is kind of understanding the challenges that folks have faced throughout their their lives, and kind of um, how they've kind of fit themselves into that, and learned how to deal with it.
Yeah.
So I'd love to ask you, were there challenges that you faced when, when coming to the US, and, um, and how have you been dealing with those?
Um, yeah, I think one of the most basic challenges that I want to mention because it's quite straightforward. It's financial. Like coming from a very simple middle class family, you come here trying. My parents are earning in rupees and spending in dollars. Like it's a big deal.
Yeah.
So you come with that sort of pressure that, oh, can you make it? In a way, will you be able to do well? Will you be able to get a scholarship, or will you be able to get a job or an internship? And every decision that you make sort of uh, adds. So, I mean, every time you sort of cross a hurdle, you're faced with another question or a burden. Every time that weight is lifted, you have another question that faces you. So financial burden is like one of the biggest things that I feel most of the Indian uh, sort of students that they face when they come here. Um, so I want to get that out of the way. I mean, I completely agree that that's one of the biggest challenges. Um, I sort of always also believe that uh, I'm extremely privileged. So when I see people who face a lot of issues that I have not, or I didn't even think about, so I feel like, oh, damn, like it's very inspiring to see people who persevere despite those sort of um, challenges or issues. Um, so I can not speak to, like anything like those where people actually have immense financial burden, or maybe like health issues, or sort of sense of that sort of responsibility for family, or maybe they don't have like a family, so it can be those kind of things. um, One of the biggest challenges, I think, which I see in general that people face, including me, is the questions that are related to um, identity as you come from India to US and try to adjust, assimilate, excel, and there is always this sense of proving yourself, you know, to everybody around. You have to be above and beyond for anybody. I mean, um, to I don't want to say that to get respect, but like, yeah, you have to constantly like prove yourself. Um, that's one thing, and always having that internal conversation about identity, where uh, that how much of fitting in is at the cost of what I was before, and is this too Indian, or because you want to be accepted by people around you. Is my accent too American now, or is my food too Indian for me to take to my workplace or whatever? Those kind of questions will always be there. Um, and another big thing, which I feel is true for everybody, not just people who come from other countries, but like in general in America, is isolation. Um, because it's a highly individualistic, focused um, community or like society where individual excellence is important, versus, especially in contrast to Indian communities that are very tight knit. The social structures and uh, those norms are very important. Your life surrounds around those sort of structures. You rely on those structures. So that's one of the biggest challenges I think everybody faces. It's harder, I think, for people who come from outside and trying to carve out a space for themselves. But even when I look at other people, I feel the society um, tends to be so individualistic, which is great. There is so much potential to excel and explore, but also get isolated very fast, no matter if you have family here or a community here. Especially, I think it's also because I come from the perspective where I'm Indian and I see how, like I said, tight knit the community is. But isolation is one of the biggest things I feel is the challenge for everybody.
Yeah, and it sounds like a lot of like this mental burden that you have to kind of carry around,
Yeah.
and that you're in a new environment. Everything is different. The systems are different. The lifestyle, the approaches, the people are different. And it there's a constant, and like this, what I'm hearing is that there's this constant kind of tug of war that's happening within you about how much you want to just kind of fit in and adopt the practices of where you are, versus retaining the values and the history and the sense of self that you've already developed.
Yeah.
um, and there's a lot of beauty in that. There's a lot of deep sense of questioning that happens within those instances and helps you develop your character. So I think that's really it's a moment, and you're very much this character in your own story. It feels like.
Uh, yeah, and I think one of the factors is also, I think when you're, especially people come here for to do masters, when they come here or to undergrad, they find everybody struggling with the same question, in a way, and everybody's doing something together. They're all trying to get through school, trying to get a job, like so everybody's in it together. So there is some sort of um, community that forms around it. You do foster like friendships during that time, and I think it gets much harder once you're out, you know, and that character, like then you lose that social structure again, right? And you have to again deal with these questions. Um, so yeah, you have to constantly sort of reinvent yourself, of course, and that's part of, like you said, building that character. And it's a great journey to have. I think most people have that journey in one way or other. You don't. have to come from India all the way away from home to go through that journey. But yeah, it's a great way of sort of self-discovery and like deep introspection. Um, so yeah, it's true.
Yeah. And I know, so I mean, that's really, yeah. There's a lot of beauty in that self discovery and constant reinvention of self. And I know like the isolation can sometimes also feel very very tightening, and especially during this time, because as the pandemic has kind of worn on, um, I not having kind of that same community that you could rely on in the same way, it must feel different. Um, so are there things that you have thought of or strategized about or tried to implement that have kind of helped to alleviate that
Hmm.
isolation, that sense of isolation? Um, and are there any tips or strategies that you might recommend to others?
Yeah. So I think uh, this sort of, what do you call it, sort of journey to self-discovery or whatever. Um, it's been mostly the strategies that I have are the ones that I did not implement. So I've learned through my mistakes that I feel if others can, they should. I mean, it might help them. Like, and I think of it as in like a sort of threefold approach. And here I'm thinking about just isolation and connecting with other people, like as the challenge. Um, so first, I think is individual, where what you can do and what you feel, and how you deal with things. And then there is this immediate uh, support system that you have, that you rely the most on, and then there is this larger community, right? So when as an individual, I feel you have to have faith in what you're doing and what you want to do, have that confidence, and you have to put in that work every single day, right? Like every single day we have to tell ourselves that, oh, okay, we are good enough, we're doing this right. Okay, fine, this we made a mistake, it's okay, we'll bounce back. So you have to build in that resiliency, you have to build in that confidence. um, and and then like you have to keep working towards that, and you have to find those strategies in yourself, you know and that's where a lot of introspection comes in. You have to, and sometimes um, that's not enough. Sometimes you have to then rely on your immediate um, support system, which includes your family or your friends who are like your cheerleaders, who will be there for you no matter what, and you'll be there for them. The second thing is also to reach out, to support your friends in because they need you, and also sometimes to ask for help. Like sometimes just introspection is not going to help. Somebody might have faced the same issue and have a solution for you. Sometimes just talking about it is going to be helpful. you know so reaching out is also extremely important. And then and understanding that you need people, even though it's like an individual oriented game that you're trying to play. But when we see a successful person, we have to understand that, like, people say that it takes a village. It really does, where you need your support system to help you get through the tough times. So you need to lean on them, you need to rely on them, and you need to find them. You know, you need to cultivate those relationships. You have to help them grow, and you have to foster that sort of sense of community within your small group of people that are like in your inner circle, where you have to build that trust, where they can help you out without any hesitation, and you can ask for help, and you can help them. And then I feel, and then there's this whole larger community, because you are here, you have a great opportunity. How do you use this opportunity to your advantage? How do you help yourself grow? So trying to find people who love doing things that you love doing, you know, trying to find a larger community that sort of transcends all these borders and, like what is what is your level of education or where you come from or what the language you're speaking, what religion you are, like just trying to find something that is community just based on that, like having friends that are just interested in going out to eat food or just interested in going clubbing, having those friendships too. Or having, I know friends who are doing like this fabulous job of just doing marathons. Like one of them ran for like 24 hours straight and they're just like doing mind blowing stuff. And I'm just like, and they are in this journey, they are finding people who are doing similar things, right? And who are interested in similar things, who love nature just like they do, and they're trying to push their own borders, like just test themselves out, like how much can we push, and just trying to do that is also important. Just trying to find a community that is outside your community, that is not just Indian people, not just urban planners, that who just love to cook food, you know, who love to listen to podcasts about like some science fiction thing, I don't know. So just trying to also reach out and connect with a larger community, or like even doing some sort of a service where you can go, donate time, and connect with the larger community if you feel for this, sort of uh, like. So I think that's also important to look at the sort of bigger picture in a way where you can get out of your circles, your bubbles, and see what kind of people are out there and what is going on in this world. That will also help us ground and maybe like find and see a larger purpose in things. That's also like another thing that I feel um, might be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are all really great suggestions, and um, I I know they're also very challenging to
Yeah.
implement because there are a lot of it's very hard, I think, on a day-to-day basis to try and actually kind of approach life that way, um, and to and even I think sometimes we don't really know that something is an option until we're exposed to it.
Yeah.
And then we realize, oh wow, this is a thing. Like this person can runs marathons. I can run marathons if
Yeah.
I want to run
Yeah.
marathons. Yeah. So it's it's great to kind of um, it's great to like think about like that these things do exist and that these opportunities are present. Um, Is there maybe an example of like one or two things that you maybe have tried personally in your own life that you might want to talk about?
Um, I'm trying to think of examples. So I don't know. I think I am extremely like I'm not as social, so maybe I'm not like the best of. I don't have the best of examples, but like I'm also the kind of person who'll be cynical about things. So I think a while back I decided that I have to try things out. So if an opportunity presents, maybe I should say yes first and then regret about it later. I mean, that's okay, right? Um, so when a friend of mine, she said, "Oh, let's go to Montana to do hiking, and we'll go to Glacier National Park, and we'll be there." I was like, "Okay, I know that friend since a very long time. We're going to be like it's been like almost over 9 years that we've been friends." I'm like, "Okay, cool." And she said, "Okay, I'm gonna invite like two of my friends, two other friends of mine." And I was like, "Okay, I don't know them, but it's fine. Doesn't matter. Let's go." you know. And I hadn't hiked like for like I think we might hiked for like 4 days, but we had to come back to campsite and everything. But I hadn't done any of that ever in my life, and I decided I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'll do it, And it wasn't a lot, but it's something that I haven't ever done, I did not know I could do it, and then I did it. Um, and then a friend of mine, she wanted to do skydiving, right? And I was like, I don't think it's for me. But what the hell? Like, I have to try it, at least to know that, oh, it's not for me, So just saying sometimes yes has helped me, especially when I know there is this innate resistance that I have, that to like socialize or go out with people that's like more than five people in the crowd, and I'm like, oh, more than five people, it's okay, I don't have to be there. So I think pushing yourself is a good thing. I do sometimes a little bit of artwork for myself. That also helps me like just uh, take out that time and do something, and see like a final product and be like, okay, I did this, you know. Um, and I know another thing is sometimes it's very important to forgive yourself, you know. It's okay if I did not uh, run for 30 minutes like I had decided, you know. It's okay if I turn down this opportunity to go out with my friends, you know. Sometimes we also have to forgive ourselves to like move on. That's what that building in resilience comes with. It comes with that, where you can sort of bounce back and be like, it's okay. Tomorrow is a new day. I'll start again, you know. Um, so I think those things have been extremely helpful. Yeah, like for example, this podcast, there is no way in the world I would agree to something like this. I wouldn't put myself out there like that, right? But I know you asked me, and I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. I don't know if I'm going to do a good job, but I'll do it. So just, I think sometimes um, saying yes is just important, doing that little bit, just pushing yourself out there a little more than what you would usually do. I mean, that's what has helped me a little bit. Trying to say, oh, okay, no, I miss people too much. Okay, I just asked my friend, okay, I'm gonna come, and she was like, yeah, you come, you can stay here, and just doing that, and um, yeah, yeah, that's been helpful.
Yeah, I think that's so great because it's like you're recognizing, you're validating your own needs, and then you're moving through the world and trying to identify ways to get those needs met.
Yeah,
Um, and it's often, I think, as women, often our needs are not validated, or that we're not often taught how to do those things. And so I think it's very inspiring that you are moving through the world and approaching it in this way.
yeah, and I think I have people to thank to, in the sense that I see other people doing that, which, like you said, is very helpful when you didn't know that, oh, this could be done, you know, and you see other people doing that, just taking action, taking charge, completing things, doing tasks, and like going out there, meeting other people. It can be anything. So it's that also, definitely, that's extremely inspiring. So I do have a lot of friends who are extremely strong, who are go-getters, and they inspire me to be like, okay, they do so much. I can do this much. Yeah, this is just a small thing I'm doing. So yeah.
Yeah. Um, I definitely can relate and have had similar experiences in my life as well. I think in having to figure out and identify people and resources to reach out to, and so it's and also the forgiveness. I've definitely also made a lot of mistakes in my own life, so I think a lot of the kind of the reflections that you've had are very universal,
Yeah.
and that I think as we grow up, we're just kind of trying to learn and navigate the world, and sometimes times are more challenging than others, and it can often be hard to know in those moments when you're doing the right or wrong thing. Um, so I commend you on on choosing to actively pursue that kind of self love and move forward in that way and see your own self worth and kind of navigate from that point of view. Can often get very challenging when you are in these kinds of circumstances to instead get into a lot of anxiety and self doubt, which I think is also part of the process. Um, but but knowing that kind of you choose to see and see the opportunities around you and like to navigate in that way is really cool. Are there any is there anything that you'd want to share with our audience, kind of before we kind of close off, that just based on your own self reflections and kind of where you started off, like living in India and now being in the U.S., kind of any big takeaways or differences that you see in yourself? Um, yeah, I'd love to know that.
Um,
They can be good and bad.
yeah, 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 yeah. I, I'm trying to think. It's just, I think we have to understand that everybody is struggling. You know, some people are just uh, good at dealing with things or like good at hiding things sometimes, and we have to understand that. I mean, again, like you said, it's a lot of this is just universal, and these are things I tell my sister. I have a younger sister, right? And that, when like you might think that your other friends are doing so much better, or like, oh, they did this and they finished their assignment too, and then they're doing the, like maybe creating like a huge profile of something, like an Instagram or like, podcasting. And I'm just like, we have to take a step back and understand everybody's on their own journey. And, like everybody is struggling, and it's okay. It's it's okay that we are struggling too. And, you have to create a toolkit for yourself. You have to believe in yourself and use those strategies to get out of this, and it will get better. You have to believe that it will get better. And it's, I know it's sometimes it's just easy to say, and it's very hard when you're in that situation, but that's what, and these are the things that help me, and everybody has their own way of thinking. You have to find what helps you. If you are the kind of person who, when they see other people excelling and they feel like, oh, if they can do it, why can't I do it? And they're all like propelled to like do this better. If you're that person, then find people who are better than you around, like find them. You have to find your own challenges. You have to find your own solutions. And there are a lot of people who are struggling with the same issues, and there are a lot of people who will use similar strategies. So you shouldn't feel alone. You shouldn't feel stuck. You have to forgive yourself for making mistakes and let go and start again, and it'll be fine. And these are things I tell myself to make myself feel better, and I hope it helps everybody else or anybody else. Yeah, yeah, that's my mantra nowadays. To just like calm myself down a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's really great and very powerful. And yeah, it is often, I think, challenging, and it's also very easy to get into the comparison game. Um, but we're all here trying, and we have to give ourselves credit for that effort. And how many like I think what I've learned over time too, especially as a data analyst who makes a lot of mistakes, like sitting there like looking and like number crunching all day and then realizing, oh, I did this wrong. I have to do this again. Okay, like I'm not stupid. I can do this. But in that process, right, like recognizing that like there's no one who is like this perfect person, right? I think we're all just, as we grow, developing and mastering and learning from every mistake that we do make, and every lesson that we do receive of who we want to be and trying to be that version of ourselves in the world. And so, yeah, I definitely can relate in so many ways to everything that you've said, um, and yeah, just kind of learning and growing in this life journey together.
Um, yeah, yeah. No, it's been great so far. Like I said, it's always an opportunity and sort of a privilege to come outside of your own bubble and step out. From, for example, coming from India to US, you can there just and meeting these other brilliant people, learning from them, being in a different environment. Nothing. It's a lot of privilege, right? So understanding that and what a big opportunity it is, and it's hard for me. I think I'm one of the most cynical and pessimistic persons, so it's hard for me to stay positive. But always trying to understand um, that this is great, and what I can do with this, what can I learn, or how can I help is important. Trying to create that foundation for yourself and being there. Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much for just like having me on this podcast and helping me push those boundaries for myself. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and thank you for being on. And I think that folks will get a lot out of this